Welcome, everybody, to the Scale Up Show. This is your host, Ryan Staley, and I have a very special guest with me today. I have Dan Gottlieb, who is a vice president analyst over at Gartner, specifically for the sales practice. Something really cool about Dan is he writes about sales tech as well as topics related to AI for sales, Gen AI, as well as seller and buyer enablement. Love the whole nerdery around Gen AI that we're going to have today. Dan, welcome. Happy to have you on the show, man.
Thanks, Ryan. Excited to be here. And we actually have shirts that say Gartner on it.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah, I should have
fantastic.
worn it. I should have
Yeah,
worn it.
fantastic. Very fantastic. So why don't we do this, man? Like, you are probably actually, I think you're one of the first analysts that I've had on in this nature. But like, I got referred to you, and the more I looked into what you're doing and who you are, I'm like, oh, he'd be awesome to have on the show. So just so you know, you're an outlier, but in a positive way that we're having you on here, man. So I think like what I would love to do is really talk about the sales tech market as a whole. And then let's narrow down because there's a ton going on right now. I know you have some strong opinions on what you're seeing. And so would love to hear your perspectives. I know you spend so much time looking and getting very deep on this.
Yeah, I mean, where to begin? So I've had this blog series. I'll tell you where this began. So it was April 2020, and I was attending the virtual outreach Unleash conference. And we're all sitting at home in our boxers, whatever, right? And the CEO stood up and said, "Hey, I want to thank our gold sponsors, Gong," and then moved into the product keynote and said, "I want to introduce our latest product, a Call AI product." And I remember thinking to myself, like, uh, anyone else? Anyone else see that? Does anyone else see what's going on here? And I had participated in a due diligence project around sales tech, a couple of years prior, and I remembered some of the big assumptions that we had made in estimating the size of the market. And the big assumption was that all of these sales tech products would be able to be sold to a wide range of sales roles. And that was when I started realizing that all of these categories, go-to-market data apps, sales engagement applications, revenue intelligence products, enablement platforms, that there would be an inevitability that they would be converging on each other in order to hit the investor expected growth expectations. And that was where the idea of Sales Tech Mayhem started, which was a blog series that we had running for a couple of years, where we were like, okay, this is going to be crazy because the competition is going to be fierce. And how is the buying going to look for clients on this?
Mm-hmm.
And so, in many ways, I think that has played out. And now what we have seen is that these categories of sales technologies have kind of evolved into something that it's hard to tell the difference about who can do what and how. As a sales organization, should we invest in one or the other? Should we have multiple products in our tech stack? And then throw on top of all of this that generative AI just completely like T-boned the entire sales tech market, just completely took everybody by surprise and turned 2023 and 2024 up to date into a whole new way of trying to reposition the value of their products using this new large language model technology. So it's a my job right now is to try to make sense of that market for Gartner's clients, and then to try to help them make good choices about how to structure their evaluations, how to think about what vendors fit them and how they go to market and how they sell. And that's a big part of why I am probably here today. So what's the state of the market in one word? I would call it mayhem.
Yeah. Well, and then, there's the unpredictability of what's happening with the LLM providers, right? Which is obviously anywhere from Google, OpenAI, Microsoft. I mean, you name it, right? And like what we're seeing is there's that potential tipping point, and they're starting to come out now. Are agents, right? Like agentic structure, it's out right now, or agents, I should say, they're out right now, but there's a wide range of different kind of quality, if you could say, and use cases with that. But like that alone is another massive change on top of it that could drop any day. And so I guess with that, if you're looking at like structuring that, and we talked about the past, now let's talk about the present, future. Like where, like do you like how do you kind of approach that with clients? I guess with how fast everything's happening, with potential tipping points like that occurring maybe at any month or week coming up. Like how do you kind of approach it in terms of like a well thought out plan in terms of moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two important uh, points of view to take. One is what is possible, and the other is what do we need?
Mm-hmm.
And because of the pace of change that's taking place, the rate of new capabilities is far outpacing our ability to process at an organizational level what we need and compare that to what's available in the market. And a lot of companies right now are very much stuck in a vendor first point of view where they're learning about what sales tech companies are providing and then saying, do we need that or not? And looking at the market that way is exhausting, overwhelming, and an impossible feat to win. And I know that because it's my job to stay on top of the market. I don't have a whole sales organization to run, and I still feel that way at the end of the day. And so I think where there's an initial burden, I think instead of learning what vendors are capable of, to parse that out with understanding how these technologies are actually structured, like how the AI actually works, learn a little bit about how the technology works. I think a really good example of that is learning how something like RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, works, which is, for the listeners that may not know what that means, it refers to a technique where a vendor may use a large language model but ground the responses in your content, your product value proposition, your data, so that when it returns a result, it's actually relevant to the sales rep, to the deal that they're working, to the account that they're working. And so that's sort of the first angle, is getting clients to feel more comfortable understanding how the technology works at a more fundamental level so that they can ask smarter questions of the vendors that they talk with.
Mm-hmm.
The other side, and I think the more important side to spend your wheels on, is how do we work? And where are our opportunities for improving the process? And a lot of companies tend to first think about this more at a metric level. We need to expand our net new logo pipeline. So how do I get after that? We need to grow our existing customer base, especially in the strategic accounts. Where's my AI for that? And I think that at one level is going to help you be more focused. But the thing about AI is that it can handle tasks at a far more granular level. And we call that level the action level. So you can think about this as there's a use case, let's say
Mm-hmm.
prospecting. There's a workflow, let's say, prospecting is made up of several workflows. Research would be one, prioritization could be one, actually like messaging selection could be one,
Mm-hmm.
channel selection, executing the tasks, right? All of those kind of wrap up into a series of workflows. And every one of those workflows is comprised of a series of actions. And so AI is capable of handling steps at that level. And so what we try to encourage our clients to do is, okay, let's talk about this. You want to use AI for strategic accounts? Instead of stopping right there and going out to the market, instead go do a real process audit of how your strategic account reps work at the use case and the workflow level and uncover those pain points. That's going to give you a way more precise understanding of where AI can add value to take out to the vendor market. And so to summarize your great question, two things we try to do are, one, improve confidence in understanding vendors by giving them confidence on how the technology really works so they can ask great questions. And the second one is give them a methodology they can use to go figure out at the action level of specificity where AI can improve how their frontline teams actually work.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I love how you're breaking it down instead of the broad bucket and basically the jobs to be done that you're talking about, right? For those, or the micro tasks that are kind of embedded underneath there, which is totally the way to go. Because like I've had people say that to me, is like, I want to use AI for prospecting, or I want to use AI for, for data, right? Like it's very broad, so it just shows the lack of understanding. But then usually, like you're saying, once you get a little bit into the weeds and say tactically, okay, here's what's possible here. Like that's one of the things I see. I don't know if you're seeing that as well. Most people aren't even aware really what's possible, right? They're assuming that AI and automation are the same, and they're just talking in very broad categories. Is that pretty typical on what you're seeing from folks that you've talked to?
It definitely is, and it's a very understandable situation to find yourself in. I find
Mm-hmm.
myself needing to be very empathetic, where I'll come to a call and I have to decide, is this going to be a call where this person needs a safe space to learn? Or is this a call where we're going to riff really hard on what's possible based on the analysis they've already done and what they need? It really runs the gamut. And you can't make any assumptions about where somebody is in that process. You can't make assumptions about age. You can't make assumptions about the kind of company they're at. Um, I had a large airplane manufacturer that everyone's heard of. They're very complicated deals, very
Mm-hmm.
long deals, huge deals, right? Um, and they needed help understanding what RAG was before they could make any decisions. And I had to uncover that in the meeting. So, and I have calls where clients will come and say, oh, I want to learn about generative AI. And I say, well, everyday AI versus generative AI. And they're like, well, what's the difference? I think just being empathetic for folks and letting folks realize like we're all learning on the go is a really important part of how I have to do my job.
Yeah, that's good, man. So what is your process for that, for keeping updated with all the tech that's happening, how fast it's rolling out, all these updates? Like, what's your tactical approach with that?
So I have a very, very unique opportunity in that I work at Gartner. And there are very intelligent AI experts on the technical side of our business that write research for product leaders at tech companies, that write research for CIOs and CTOs that have been talking about generative AI. The first generative AI known at Gartner was from 2017. And so, I have the benefit that those people are just a Teams message away for me. So I've very actively invested in relationship building with those experts and, being very open to them about what I do and don't understand. And what I actually, in 2023, when I, was dubbed our generative AI expert, which made me insanely insecure and I felt imposter syndrome towards that. Um, I just structured a giant survey, went out into the sales tech market, and then I partnered with our AI experts to interpret the answers. And they taught me through processing the answers from a lot of different companies what was good, what wasn't, et cetera. So, I mean, for me, it's about relationships and talking to people and putting myself out there to, ask questions and not be embarrassed that I have no idea what it is. And that's honestly been, I know that that's kind of like cliche, but it's also just my honest answer to that question.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that makes sense. And very humble way to approach it. And obviously, you do have a ton of resources, both from like client data and then at the same time, technical resources too. So it's a great opportunity. And I think it's smart that you're actually leveraging it. Most people would walk right by that. So one more question I have, and then we'll wrap things up for part one. I guess my quick question for you is then like, where do you see things going with the whole technology as a teammate, right? Like, where do you see
Yeah.
that going, and what are the timelines for that in terms of your mind?
Well, it's funny. I didn't even answer your question about agents earlier. So I'm gonna. I think that this, but here we go. Here we have an opportunity. So, you know, um, I very much believe in the pendulum metaphor. and in that trends tend to swing one way, then they swing another way, and that the really valuable ideas are always kind of in the middle. And I think that especially with innovative ideas, that tends to be the case. So I'll use that as a framing. And so at Gartner, we have this method or this terminology called technology as a teammate, where we want our clients to stop thinking about technology just as a tool and start thinking about the role that it plays as a member of the team in helping each of the members of the team do their job. That's the key idea. And so, on one end of the spectrum, you have the kind of augmentation, the AI assistant capabilities. And we've really been talking about those AI capabilities a lot over the last couple of years. And then what's about the tidal wave that's about to hit the market is the agents that are coming. Salesforce has announced, their agent force, for example. There are a series of startups that are providing AI agents for things like prospecting. And I think that where this is going to land is that sales organizations, individual contributor reps, are going to collaborate with a assistant on a more daily basis to help them prioritize how to spend their time, how to take advantage of signals. I do believe that that is a very much so where the technology is heading. And then in order to execute certain kinds of tasks that are, by the way, going to be just as much internal as external, I would actually argue that we'll see more internal than external in the short term agents. They'll become a manager of their agents in order to help them with things. And so I'll give you an example, right? A researcher agent to help me track down answers to questions about a company, about a person. There's plenty of precedent for that right now in terms of the role that AI is playing. Another might be a deal strategist agent to collaborate on ideas for how to take a deal unstuck based on deal scores or deal risks that are coming in through other products that I have. Another example might be generating proposals and generating content. Think of it as like my creative assistant that is helping me take some of those messaging ideas and turn them into really visually compelling, data-rich buyer enablement content. I believe that is the future where there's the rep is still like the heart and soul of the deal in a lot of cases in the majority of complex B2B transactions. But their assistant is going to help them make decisions, but less effort making decisions. And then they can collaborate with agents on the execution half. And I really see internal work as being a very powerful time saver of agents, tracking stuff down, finding the right people, getting approvals, like briefing a deal team before a big meeting. Like I believe that's really where it's going to be. Is an individual contributor seller is going to have a team of agents that they're managing to help them do their job, but ultimately to the client, everybody's going to know that I have someone that I'm working with that's a person that's helping me do this deal.
Yeah, love that. I'm total alignment with you and think that's definitely where it's heading. And I'm seeing a lot of that already in certain shapes and forms and quality levels, right? So unfortunately, we're up on time. Where can people find you? Where can they find out more about Gartner?
I mean, hit me up on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. I accept, I think almost, unless I think it's a bot, I think I accept every single connection request. I don't see the downside. And that's one place I post my thoughts. And then if you want to learn anything about Gartner for Sales, you can just go to Gartner for Sales website, and you'll learn all about the breadth of our content and the research that we do and how we help clients.
Well, Dan, it was a pleasure having you on the show. I look forward to having you back for part 2. And thanks for being on, man. This was a blast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ryan.